I'm Linda Pugsley. So I was a flight nurse, and I was in Vietnam. I had 2 tours there. They were just like 18 and 19 years old. Some of them just out of high school. They knew what they were doing, but they would go out into a field, and they would come back again, and people would, their guys, their friends would be shot. I'm telling you, it was really difficult. This stays with you forever. These guys would be out on point or something, and there'd be a sniper up in a tree, and they'd shoot him in the head, and his brains go blow back on your face. That's with you forever. This is the guy you might have gone to high school with, or basic training or something. And for them to continue on, they'd go back out in the field knowing that he's dead. And they were involved with seeing that. And some of these guys died in each other's arms. And they loved each other. They would literally just give their lives for each other. They loved each other that much. It made no difference what color, what background you had. They were in the same mission. The average age in World War II is like age 27. The average age in Vietnam was 18 and 19 years old. They were so young, and but wonderful, wonderful, brave young men. And this one young fellow, he had both legs gone, and his arm was gone, massive abdominal wounds, testicles shot off, and he was blind. All this on one guy, and he also had, I remember on the left side of his face, it looked like someone had just taken a marker pen and made little black dots on him. And he called out for me, but he was blind, he couldn't see me, and I went over and I said, "What do you need?" And what he said just floored me. Here's a young guy, so far away from home, and he's not angry at the war, he's not angry at the government, and what he says to me is, "Will my girlfriend still love me when I go home?" I almost didn't know what to say, and so I just put my hands on his face, and I was crying, but he couldn't see that, and I said, "Well, she's gonna love you all the more when you go home, because you're gonna go home a hero." And then I came home, and truly my heart was broken. The attitude, especially of our young people in college needs to be such a learning experience for you. It's like a smorgasbord, kind of find out where your gifts are and information about the world, and whatever information they were getting was so wrong. Drug addict, baby killer, how dare you say that? These were the finest threads of America's cloth, as I've said earlier. They were there to try and help a country that was being invaded. Communism was spreading. A lot of people forgot about that. Communism was where the government and a few at the top rule everything. They decide everything. That's anathema to a free enterprise system. I want to decide where I live. I want to decide how much I make. I want to decide my career field. I don't want to be tested by the government when I'm 10 and told where I'm going to be working. So it's something that was real, and when North Vietnam invaded South Vietnam, we had a draft that was going on at the time, but it was only about 30% that were drafted. The rest were either already in or joined to help out. Just like me. I was in the Air Force already, but I volunteered to go to Vietnam because our young guys were being shot up left and right. Now, I thought I was ready. I was prepared in my head with the knowledge, and I was prepared with my skill set with my hands, but my heart wasn't ready to see the mayhem over there. You get all the politics you want out of it, but they would go into a field where the grass was as high as their chest. I wouldn't want to go in there because there's snakes and rats in there, but there was also an enemy in there. And yet their hearts were broken when they had to kill someone. I'm still dealing with them today. We're at a Vietnam event, and they're still coming over to my tent as a nurse, or looking at my stuff, but they cry out and they go, "How can I love God and my country and I had to kill someone?" These were absolutely marvelous young Americans. Everyone can discuss the war, what they want to do, but I saw the finest that America has to offer. They left everything. They left school, they left their future, they left everything, all the comforts that we have. 2/3 of the world doesn't live like we live. So I was so proud of them, but they suffered tremendously. The medical equipment we had was the best we had at the time. But it couldn't save everybody. I know I had to deal with that as a person. My heart broke when they died. I felt guilty for a lot of years. It's very difficult for me to see the wall sometimes because I know I took care of some of those guys. And for a long time, I blamed myself that they died, but I really had to stop that because we only had so much. There's only so many things that we could do. And I just had to come to understand God's a lot more in charge than I ever was. But I have come to grips with it, and it was a valiant effort that we tried to do with some very valiant people over there. And I am so proud of those men. I will cherish every moment, as difficult as it was. You know, I didn't know if I was going to come home because, and I remember one time, this is kind of funny now, but it wasn't funny back then. We had little cassette tapes. I made a recording one time when they were bombing the base and bombs are falling and you know, machine gun fire, and I remember saying, I sent it to my mom and dad, and I remember saying, I've seen so much damage with the injuries. I don't want to be injured. I just want to be killed if anything happens here on the base. And then I mailed it to him. About a month later, I get a letter from my mom who said, don't send any more of those tapes to your dad listens to it every night. He lays his head down on the kitchen table and he cries. Because he was a Marine in World War II. He was wounded in Guadalcanal, so I met my mom. She was a corpsman in the Navy, but I didn't realize it was affecting them. Now, my brother was in Vietnam at the same time I was. He was a flight mechanic. He was stationed at Ban Hoa, which is outside of Saigon, which is near Tan Son Nhut. So we would fly into Tan Son Nhut. The 3rd Marine Division was up there, so we took care of a lot of the Marines. But I can remember with my brother and I being there, we never thought about what our parents were thinking about because we were focused on our mission. We knew what we were alive, we knew what we were doing. But I found out what it was like because 3 of my nephews, 4 were Marines, but 3 of them were in Fallujah in 2005 when it was all falling apart. All 3 of them together. Now they all came back okay, so I kind of got a little taste of that. And I wish I hadn't sent the vets who have been in a combat situation have a bond with each other that no one can explain. As a nurse that was in Vietnam, there was a war going on. Even though we were on the base, I didn't have to go outside the wire and fight the Vietnamese. They still bombed us. There's still machine gun fire going on. They're still trying to kill you while you're on the base. You're still in a dangerous place. But you keep your mission going. That's the key.